Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Tips and Tricks. Today we're going to look at the combination of Waymaker and Weeping Wall, and how we can process some drum loops to turn them into a kind of glitchy, percussive atmosphere. I've got this simple loop going here that I'm going to play without any effects. That's pretty basic. Now, what I want to do is I want to send the drum channel to Weeping Wall, but let's configure it first. Weeping Wall is on a send effect, so I'm going to drop the dry volume down, and I'm going to reduce the number of loopers because I don't want this to get too crazy. And then I am going to sync Weeping Wall to the tempo. Let's try quarter notes to start. Let's hear how that sounds. I'm going to bring up the drums and send them to Weeping Wall now. So we're just kind of getting an echo of the drums right now. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put an EQ in front of Weeping Wall, because I don't really want that kick drum to get recorded. Okay, so we've got something basic going on here. But now let's bring in Waymaker. So by default, Waymaker is just a shift module, which is kind of useless because we only have one looper. But let's flip over to a weight sequencer. And the weight sequencer is going to pick a random pitch on every step. I'm going to set it to progress every time a loop finishes, so we get a random pitch on every loop. Now, what's interesting here is the relationship between pitch and speed when it comes to loopers. Now, if you want to play a loop back an octave up, you play it twice as fast. And if you want to play it back an octave down, you play it twice as slow. But the interesting thing is, when Weeping Wall is pitched an octave up or an octave down, it's kind of recording at that natural speed as well, similar to a tape player. So if you recorded a loop while playing back an octave down, and then you returned to the natural pitch, it's actually going to change the timing as well. That natural pitch is going to be twice as short compared to the original loop that was recorded an octave down. So when we're doing this kind of setup where Weeping Wall is sort of constantly recording, constantly bringing in new loops, and we're changing the pitch of Weeping Wall, all of a sudden we're also changing the speed and the timing of the loops. So I'm going to set up 3 random stages. That's just the natural pitch, an octave up and an octave down. I'm going to give them about equal chances of all happening. Let's just hear how that changes what Weeping Wall was doing. It's already way more exciting. And you can further dial this in by changing the looper size. If you want the maximum size of the loopers to be longer, you can bump that up to something like a half note. It's kind of nice to keep things a little bit more regular. Or if you want to just kind of blitz things, you can go down to an 8th note or even a 16th note. Let's go back up to a quarter note for now. Now, the other thing that's interesting here is that by default, Waymaker will choose octaves and fifths. And if you didn't know, a fifth has kind of a pitch relationship of 1.5. It's an interval where one note is 1.5 times the frequency of the other. And so that means if we were to introduce a random chance of going up a fifth, we'd be kind of introducing this dotted note rhythm because the loop can now be 1.5 times faster or slower, which is basically exactly the relationship between a dotted note and its normal counterpoint. So let's bring in a fifth and see how that changes things. Actually, let's start without it, and then we'll bring it in after. Do you hear how it almost introduces like a triplet feel, kind of like triplet ratchets in there? Because dot notes and triplets can kind of sound similar when they're so fast. But I think that's a really fun thing to introduce. And then the other thing I really like doing is I like to just kind of send anything at Weeping Wall. I've also got this little kind of percussive sine wave thing going on. Let's send that to Weeping Wall too. And then we'll have a little kind of pitched element in there that's getting shifted around as well. We can also add a random skip to Weeping Wall. This is going to thin things out a little bit and just give a random chance that loops will kind of be skipped over, which can kind of make this a bit more sparse and a bit more exciting when you actually hear it. I like to put a bit of reverb on this kind of thing too. It can be really fun to kind of add some extra effects to really make this kind of thing pop. You know, for example, what if we threw RC20 after it? And let's add this digital effect. Could also make this all reversed. Maybe put some random panning on these grains too. could listen to that all day, but I will spare you from that. This is kind of a fun technique that I really like to use in Eurorack. You know, just taking a kind of simple drum loop and adding all kinds of variations and kind of just additional fun stuff on top of it. And I think this combination of Weeping Wall and Waymaker kind of accomplishes that task pretty well. So give it a try.